Welcome to A Fine Time, The Nanny Revisited. This is a podcast about The Nanny, where we recap each episode and then discuss, sharing our own unique take on each episode. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Debbie. Today we're talking about episode 22, I Don't Remember Mama. For those in the know, this is the last episode in season 1. Tune in next week for our season 1 wrap-up. As usual, we're going to start with a brief summary of the episode. But before we dive into that, back by popular demand, my mother is joining us for this week as well as a guest co-host.
I'm delighted to be here.
All right.
We're delighted to have you.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. Here's our summary. Mother's Day is around the corner, and Fran asks Niles what the Sheffields normally do, learning that they don't mention it. This is not much of a surprise given that the family never talks about Sarah, Maxwell's first wife and the children's mother. Instead, Maxwell typically finds a distraction. This year, the family has joined a country club, and Maxwell has planned a whirlwind day of tourist attractions. Despite Maxwell's efforts, Gracie wants to participate in the country club's mother-daughter beauty pageant. At the pageant, a competitor makes a big stink about Fran not being Gracie's mother, and Gracie announces that she doesn't have a mother because her mother died rushing off. Back at home, Maxwell and Gracie share another heartwarming scene where Gracie admits that she doesn't miss her mother because she doesn't remember her, and Maxwell tells her how much her mother loved her. Gracie decides she wants to kick some country club butt, and she and Fran end up as first runners-up in the beauty pageant. Maxwell interrupts the family watching Fran's old home movies to put on a Sheffield family film showing Sarah interacting with a very young Gracie. Bernadette, did I miss anything we should add to the summary?
Just really quickly, just that Maxwell acknowledges that he shouldn't have let Gracie forget how much her mother loved her.
That's a good addition. Thank you. Mom, do you want to add anything? Nope. Okay. Bernadette, would you like to take us to scene 1?
Yes. So we open in the living room. Fran is coming down the stairs on the phone with her mother. They're discussing what their plans are going to be. They mention the Sizzler. There's a whole backstory about how in the past, Sylvia has gotten kind of banned because she would put food in her purse. And Fran's like, it's all you can eat at the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Big distinction. So Niles is down in the living room cleaning. So Fran and Niles start having a conversation about, what they do respectively for Mother's Day. And Niles notes that he used to take his mother to Bath. And Fran, of course, interprets this as in the bathtub.
Correct.
rather than Bath, England. And even after she has a little anecdote about her aunt Polly, who would take her cousin Sheldon, into the bath, and they ended up on a special in Geraldo. And even when Niles tries to correct her, like, no, Bath to town, she says, still weird.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you do it, it's still weird or something like that.
Yes. So Fran notes that there are some old home movies that on tape that old movies that she wants to transfer onto like VHS tape to watch. And again, she's asking Niles, well, what do the Sheffields do? Because they don't, and he notes they don't mention the mother. And so basically it's, as you mentioned in your summary, usually there's some type of distraction. And this is funny because I believe it's Fran who says, if you want my opinion, no response. I said, if you want my opinion. And this echoes in the last episode where we had kind of a similar thing with Niles and Maxwell, where I once loved someone. I said,
I was in love once.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
And so again, Niles is explaining they don't talk about her. Fran notes, well, if we didn't talk about the dead, there'd be nothing to talk about. And at funerals, there's food and everything like that.
Right. The exact line is, I don't think it's normal. They all act as if Sarah never existed. In my house, if we didn't talk about the dead, we'd have nothing to talk about except food. Great thing about funerals, you get both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, Niles is just explaining that Maxwell, his kind of approach to everything is to keep the kids really busy so they don't get depressed.
Right.
And then we learned that Maxwell, has now joined a country club.
Did you catch what Fran said before Maxwell bursts in with the diversion about what her mom would get her when she was sad?
Oh, I don't have that written down. What was it?
Get a new Pez dispenser.
Ah,
And so when Maxwell bursts in with, "We've joined a country club," she's like, "Well, that's good too."
because they're so comparable, right?
I was going to say, which would you prefer, to join a country club or get a Pez dispenser? I don't know.
I think it would depend on the atmosphere of the country club.
Fair. That's a fair point. Yeah.
Then she also mentions Flamingo Beach. But
Yes.
I don't really have much more on that. Is there anything you want to add?
I will pick up where you left off with the Flamingo Beach Club
Mhm.
in our Yiddish Cop segment. So
Okay, sounds
yeah.
good.
Do you have anything on the scene, Mom?
Yes, Fran mentions a roast that was cooked at a country club by her
Right.
Yeah.
and says that was also the winner of the 9th race at Belmont.
That's what I was going to talk about in our Yiddish Cop segment.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine. We can talk about it both.
All right. Well, I'll save my commentary for later then.
Okay. You want to
So
take us to the country club?
I would love to. So the Sheffields come into what looks like a very fancy country club, and there's tons of wood paneling, and Fran jokes with the woman who's showing them around about how half the dues must go to Lemon Pledge. And Maxwell considers this, a great way for the family to spend time together. And immediately thereafter, so one of the things the show is really good about is, character A will say something, and then immediately thereafter, the opposite or the exact thing happens, right? And so Brighton says he's going to go to the video room, and Maggie's going to go elsewhere, and Maxwell's just kind of left with saying, "Have fun. You're out of the will."
Mhm.
And so Gracie's still with them, and Maxwell can't bring himself to say Mother's Day, but their tour guide jumps in and says, "We have a special event for Mother's Day, a mother-daughter beauty pageant." And Maxwell's like, "Oh, I don't think so. No, that's not a good idea." And the the tour guide was like, "I actually meant them," pointing at, Fran and Gracie, "not that you're not attractive in your own right." And so Fran mentions that she and her mother went up for something like that once, but she insisted on wearing a bikini. And the poor tour guide asks, "Well, what's wrong with that?" And Fran says, "Have you ever seen a hysterectomy scar from the 60s?" And Maxwell basically tries to explain that, no, we're busy on Sunday, and he starts rattling off the things they're going to do: the Guggenheim, Radio City Music Hall, Empire State Building, a Circle Line tour. And Fran's like, "That's all?" And then Maxwell's like, "Then lunch, then the zoo, Statue of Liberty, FAO Schwartz." And Fran suggests, "Well, why don't you just chloroform them until Monday?" Like, not that we recommend chloroforming your children, obviously, but that does seem like a lot less effort.
Well, and the tour guy seems a little uncomfortable. Like, I'll leave you guys to discuss that.
Right. Yeah. She basically uses that as an opportunity to say, "I'll leave you to discuss that. I'll introduce Grace to some of the other children." And Grace says, "Okay, but I'm warning you, I'm a loner."
Mhm.
And so Fran and Maxwell start having a discussion about whether Gracie should participate in this mother-daughter beauty pageant. And Maxwell's argument is the last thing Grace needs on Mother's Day is to be reminded of her mother. And, Fran picked up a little glass of wine and is sampling food from the food that's out. And, eventually she basically says, "Look, Grace is a little girl who wants to be in a beauty pageant and get all dolled up. Now, if it doesn't bother her, why should it bother you?" Which is, very insightful, right? Like, if someone's going to be hurt by it, like, who is Maxwell really trying to protect, Grace or himself? Do either of you have anything you want to add about that scene?
I thought it was cute that Fran said, well, there are not a lot of casualties in pageants.
True.
And then she got into that little anecdote about her time doing pageants and how she put hairspray. Um, I think it was Pam in someone's hairspray, and it's the person who ended up winning, and so she couldn't keep the crown on her head. And Maxwell looks a little confused and then talks about the meat and aerosol, and she's like, "Oh no, you're thinking of spam."
All right. So, Mom, do you want to do the next scene?
Oh, the next scene takes place in the house, and we're in the hallway where we're going to see magic being done. Gracie has a cute little magician's outfit on, and Fran is lying down in a large box with her head and feet sticking out of different ends, and they're going to cut her up. And the cute joke is first they can't find the instructions, but then they find the instructions, and that was for the easy bake oven. And eventually they cut her up, and she's still talking and move the two parts of the box in two different directions. And then Maxwell and Cece come in. And I thought it was interesting. At first, when they came in, they're both wearing vests, and I thought they were the same vest, but they're wearing different vests, but with similar colors. And Cece's kind of having a good time with the nanny being cut up. And by the end of the scene, she's pushed her completely out of camera shot, and you hear a crash.
Mhm.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bernadette.
It's the second time, like Cece last episode was very delighted at the prospect of Fran getting married, and then this episode she's delighted by Fran being cut in two and
Yep.
kind of helpless in the box. Because as everybody else goes to look for the instructions, because Gracie doesn't know how to put her back together, Cece is left to her own devices and says, "Why don't we go for a little spin?" Fran notes she's annoyed and nauseous, and Cece pushes her out of frame.
And then Fran's foot kicks her.
Yes, yes. But earlier in this scene, I thought it was interesting when Maggie and Brighton are having their little exchange, remembering their mom, because Fran's asking them about it, what they remember. And Maggie says she was really pretty. Brighton says she had the best laugh. And then Maggie notes that she liked to sing off key.
Yeah. That's a really cute moment. I'm going to take us even a step further back to the very beginning of the scene. Gracie, she's dressed up like a magician, and Fran's getting into the box, and she says, now for my final trick, I will saw my assistant in half. And Fran's like, remind me why I'm the assistant. And Gracie, so smart, is like, the beautiful woman is always the assistant. Oh, okay. And so Fran gets into the box, and Niles is like, one born every minute. But what actually transitioned into the conversation about Sarah is, I think, Maggie saying that she couldn't believe that Daddy was going to let Gracie be in the pageant, because they never talk about Mom. So as you guys have both pointed out, Gracie can't find the instructions, and they're the easy bake instructions that she has. And Gracie's solution is, we'll just wing it. And Niles says, what's the worst that can happen? I wonder, what is the worst that could possibly happen if I'm being sawed in half? This is a scene that I do not know how they did it. I'm impressed every time I see it. I don't know. Did either of you catch what Cece was saying as she and Maxwell entered the scene?
No.
I don't believe I did.
She says, I'm telling you, Maxwell, this whole mother-daughter beauty pageant is a terrible idea. And as soon as she sees Fran sawed in two, she says, well, on the other hand.
Yeah.
And then she also asks, where are the swords that we plunge in? And she's clearly giddy. And Fran jumps in, that's a different trick. And Cece's like, doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of to your point, Cece is very happy by certain key things that are not super for Fran. Bernadette, would you like to take us into back to the country club.
Yes. So we are back at the country club, and it's just Fran and Gracie this time. Gracie notes that everyone's so nice. There's a lady who never stops smiling. Fran notes that's probably too much, Botox cosmetic procedures. Did you see that bow? Those were her ears. And basically, they're kind of sizing up the competition.
Right.
And Fran notes, have your chest out. And Gracie's like, it is out. And they're both kind of standing, there. And they meet Bobby Joe and Betty Joe, her
Correct.
daughter.
Mhm.
And they are like the classic kind of the stereotypical kind of mother-daughter country club, blonde, very pretty kind of thing. And they're approaching them. And after they introduce themselves as Bobby Joe and Betty Joe, Fran kind of remarks, "Oh, from Petticoat Junction." And they're kind of laugh, and you can tell there's a tension between these two pairs. And they Bobby Joe is like, "Oh, is this your first pageant?" And Fran's like, "Actually, no." And Bobby Joe and Fran start kind of competing back and forth, starting in 82
Yep.
with Miss Sunbelt. And I didn't catch the name of every single title, but they go back and forth. So it's 82, then 86, 84, then 85. And then it jumps to 87, which is like, I believe, Miss Universe for Bobby Joe.
Yep.
And Fran just kind of notes to that, "Oh, nothing in 86, huh?"
Right. Right. So they went back and forth starting in 82. So it was 82 Miss Sunbelt, 83 Miss something, something, something,
Yeah.
something else, 84, 85 Miss Union Turnpike, 87 finalist Miss Universe. Nothing in 86, huh?
Yep. And then so obviously, both sides are kind of trying to psych each other out. But then
Right.
Bobby Joe and Betty Joe leave, and Fran kind of says to Gracie, "Well, tough, but they're tough, but we can take them in the talent portion." But then, of course, right then, a mother and daughter duo tap by.
Right.
And then Fran notes, "Oh, their big calves are going to do them in," which, again, I'm not a big fan of making fun of like bodies, but
I knew you were gonna say that.
yep.
I knew you were gonna say that when she said the line, "They're talented, but those big calves are going to cost them." I was like, Bernadette's gonna comment on that.
You know me well.
I do.
Was there anything you wanted to add to that particular scene?
Nothing on my point from me.
Yeah, Union Turnpike's actually a street in Queens. So I
Oh,
think
okay.
Miss Fine made that up, that she won a prize for that.
Okay.
She was running out of pageants to one up the other women on.
Oh, that's interesting because not to step on future fun too much, there's another episode where Fran references her beauty pageant history and she references Miss Subways. She also her platform was Lexington and somewhere else. I don't remember the cross street, but like all these different New York landmarks she's using as like these were the pageants she did. So I didn't think of it as like fake. I just thought of it as, well, that's a weird place to have a pageant, but okay.
Yeah, but where do you really go after Miss Universe?
She had nothing in 86. So clearly she lost.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, or shall we stick with the country club and move to the next scene?
Well, just to mention that the woman who played Betty Joe actually was one of my favorites on Days of Our Lives sometime later, but also Petticoat Junction, as some of you may know, is a TV series back then.
Oh, yeah. I had a sense that it was kind of a shot at their names for seeming kind of country or old timey.
Yeah, so Petticoat Junction was an American sitcom that was on from 1963 to 1970. It took place in the Shady Rest Hotel, whose owner had three daughters, Betty Joe, Bobby Joe, and Billy Joe. That's according to Wikipedia.
Okay.
So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Okay. So are you ready for the next scene?
I guess so. And I think it's me. so we're still at the country club, and if Betty Joe and Billy Joe are finishing up have either are just finishing up or have just finished their talent portion, and the guide who was showing the Sheffields around previously mentions that they won the last 3 years. Well, turns out that Fran is refusing to do the magic act because there's no way that she's going to let Gracie put her back in that box. And Gracie doesn't understand it. And Fran's like, you left me in there forever. Like, I had an itch on my toe, on my foot. And Gracie's like, well, why didn't you scratch it? And she's like, because it was in another room.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, Fran says, look at all those women over there kissing up to the judges. It's so demeaning. Oh, a spot just opened up. And so she gets ready to go and talk to the judge, and she tells Gracie, trust no one. Okay, so Gracie sits there and looks a little nervous. And then the daughter, Betty Joe, comes over, Billy, whatever the kid's name is, comes over and says, I hate beauty pageants, don't you? And Gracie's like, I'm not supposed to talk to anyone. Why? I just want to be your friend. Your mom's real pretty. Thanks, but she's not my mom. She's my nanny. See ya, says the kid. And of course, at this point, Fran comes back and she says, well, if nothing else, we've got a lock on Miss Congeniality.
Mm-hmm.
And so the mom, Bobby Joe, I keep screwing up their names.
Betty Joe.
Betty, yeah.
Mom's name is Bobby Joe.
Bobby Joe.
Mom.
That's what I thought.
Mommy Joe.
Bobby Joe. Anyway, Bobby Joe starts making a stink about how Fran's a fake. And Fran, of course, says, I'm a fake. Let she who is without silicone cast the first stone. And, the other mom, the mom jumps in and says, you're not this child's mother. You're her nanny. So it's a mother-daughter pageant. And poor Gracie at this point says, I don't have a mother. She died. And she runs out of the room. And this is something that we've noticed that the Sheffield children do all the time. They exclaim something and then they run out of the room. And Fran says to the mom, you will stop at nothing. And she turns to the kid and says, don't ever go out for cheerleader. And she goes and follows Gracie. You may recall she gave the same advice to Andrea in the episode The Show Must Go On, I believe. So anyway, do either of you want to add anything to that scene?
No.
Okay. Mom, do you want to do the next scene?
I'll try. We're back at the house and Niles is juggling, I believe they're oranges, and Maxwell comes in and Miles immediately drops the oranges and, what are you doing? And, denies that he's doing anything. And then Cece walks in from the front door and goes flying because she's actually stepped into one of the oranges. And later they show her heel having pierced an orange. And then you have Gracie and Fran coming in. And Gracie's running up the stairs very upset. And they ask Fran, like, what's the matter with Gracie? And, mentions the problem that arose at the country club.
Well, did you catch what Fran's initial response was to Maxwell?
No.
She has to go to the bathroom real bad.
Yeah.
Because this is again, another instance where Franz doesn't want to come clean with Maxwell immediately. So anyway, continue.
Anyway, I don't have that many notes, but at the end I think Niles says to Cece something about be careful. Someone might drop a house on you.
Yeah. So Cece said something like, oh, Miss Fine's beauty pageant, mother-daughter beauty pageants, not going well. Niles, break out the bubbly. And she's clearly ecstatic. And Niles turns to her and says, you have no power here. Be gone before someone drops a house on you. And then Cece kind of looks up, looking to see if there's going to be a house dropped on her. Bernadette, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just thought it was really funny, that initial exchange between Niles and Maxwell, because Maxwell comes in, Niles drops all the oranges, pretends like nothing's happened. Maxwell's like, are you trying out for the circus? And he's like, and he acts like he has no idea what he's talking about. And Maxwell's like, you were juggling. And Niles is like, juggling, sir. And he's like, yes, I saw it with my own 2 eyes. And he's like, I don't know what you want from me, Niles. And he's like, I want you to admit that you're juggling. And he Niles says, that will never happen.
Exactly.
But it turns out Maxwell's actually trying to get away from Cece.
Right.
And because he notes that Cece keeps telling him not to think about Sarah, and he says how insensitive of her. And of course, Niles is not at all surprised.
Shocker.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I want to just add that after Cece steps on and slips on the orange, Niles says, "Oh dear, now how did that get there? If I've told those children once, I've told them a million times not to leave their fruit lying around the house."
mhm.
And so, as we've kind of already mentioned, after Gracie runs up the stairs and after Fran tries to say, "Oh, well, she needs to go to the bathroom real bad," Maxwell won't have any of it. And so Fran says, "Gracie is all upset because some nutcase woman made a big stink because I'm not her mother." And Gracie had to say she didn't have a mother, and it all went downhill from there, which is basically what happened. So yeah. Bernadette, do you want to take us up to Gracie's room?
Yes. So Maxwell and Fran go into Gracie's room, and Gracie is aggressively kind of brushing a doll's hair. And Fran's kind of like, oh, good job. Like that's looking kind of like Sinead O'Connor, who at the time was bald. So,
Yep.
um, but there's this whole exchange too where, Fran being Fran talks a lot. And, they tell her, well, Maxwell wants to talk with Gracie and stuff. And she's like, I'm going to stop talking, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop listening. But, I'm going to not talk. And this is me not talking right now. And, it just goes on for a while.
Right.
And finally, she does stop talking. And Maxwell is talking with Gracie on her bed because Fran has moved away a little bit, giving some space for Maxwell and Gracie.
Did you see where she sat down?
At like the little kids table, right?
I thought maybe she sat on the table, but near her was the chair, was the little bench, the child-sized bench that she and Maxwell
Yeah.
sat on previously
Yeah.
got stuck on. So
Yes. So it's on the other side of because Maxwell and Gracie are on Gracie's bed at
right.
this point. And, Maxwell's like talking about, how, about, no, you miss her. And Gracie's like, that's what's wrong. I don't miss her. I don't remember her. Brighton and Maggie do, but I can't. And she asks Maxwell, how come you never talk about her? And then, and he's like, oh, it's hard for me as well. And she's like, you can't remember her either?
Right.
He's like, no. I remember everything. The first time we met, her sweetness, her laugh, how much she loved you. And at this point, Maxwell's acknowledging like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have prevented you from like remembering her. I was, how much she loved you. I was trying to protect you and myself.
Right.
And so basically, Gracie and Maxwell have this kind of sweet moment, and then Fran blows her nose loudly and from the side because she's touched by this scene as well. And, they note that they can remember her together. And then in terms of the pageant, Maxwell wants to see what Maggie or Gracie wants to do about it. And she says, I want to do it. I want to kick some country club butt. And Fran's like, I don't know where she got that from because that's
Exactly.
what she kind of mentioned when they first stepped into the country club when they were sizing up their competition. So it was a very poignant little scene between the two of them and Fran off in the corner.
Right. Right.
Was there anything you wanted to add to that?
I don't think so. Mom, do you have anything?
Just Gracie says before the dad starts explaining, is that bad?
Mm-hmm.
Again, that adds to that poignant whole thing about, what happens, when a parent dies and children are young and all that. So it's kind of a real heavy theme, for a situation comedy.
Yes, it is. And I appreciate Fran encouraging that the kids remember. Like she's not trying to make them forget about their mom or Sarah, I appreciate that. And I might make I can talk about it more towards the end, but yeah.
Right.
Do you want to take us back to the country club?
Yeah. So one thing that I'll just say as we get to the country club, that I don't really know where this country club is because
Yeah.
because like we've seen like the outside of it and it's like really big building and there's a lot of green around it. It's clearly not in Manhattan. Like,
Mhm.
so I don't know where it is. Like to me, it looks like it should be out in Suffolk County somewhere, but that doesn't make any sense because they wouldn't be able to get to and from it so quickly. So I don't know where the country club is. So there's that. Anyway, so we go back to the country club and it turns out that Grace and Fran are now back in the pageant, and the woman who was showing Sheffield around before basically announces them that the newest members are, Grace Sheffield and Fran Fine. And well, I'm not exactly sure what they're doing, but I'm sure we'll all enjoy it. And at this point, what's interesting is Maxwell Niles and the other children are there, even though they hadn't been there previously. And so, on the stage is this like wooden theater box. I don't know how else to describe it. And the curtain goes up and we see these two little puppets. And one's supposed to be Fran, one's supposed to be Gracie. And you see their chins and they've painted little faces on them. And so they're singing the song Anything You Can Do from Annie Get Your Gun, although they've changed the lyrics. So, they sing the lines about anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. I can knit a sweater. I can fill it better. Can you bake a pie? No, neither can I. Anyway, and so when they finish, they get quite a reaction from the crowd. Like I think Maxwell and family are standing up and other people are just giving them a huge round of applause. And I don't know where you want to end the scene. So I can stop there or I can continue with
You can continue if you want into
Okay.
the kind of all because Fran and Gracie do a big bow and they're wearing matching outfits.
They are wearing matching outfits, and yes, they take a big bow and then they exit stage right and they go back to I guess the dressing room or the preparation room, whatever you want to call it, and they're wiping the little faces off their chins. And Patti LaBelle comes to congratulate Fran and say how wonderful it was. And Fran's so excited to meet her and, oh, what are you doing here? And then Patti LaBelle's daughter runs out. Oy, good luck. And then Fran says, like she needs luck. She's a professional. Don't these contests have rules? And Grace is like, they bent the rules for us. And Fran's like, oh, whose side are you on anyway?
Mhm.
So we see a bit of a performance between Patti LaBelle and her daughter. And Fran concludes by saying, if they don't come in second, there's no justice.
Yeah.
So, Mom, you want to take the last scene?
Yes, now we're back at home.
Oh, sorry. Before we do that, Bernadette, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, just that because it really is their mouths upside down and like you said, painted on the chin. And it's like, but they have little arms and bodies that move along with the beat. And I just was so bizarre looking,
It was. Did you
but
think
very fun, but very bizarre.
did it warrant the large reaction from the crowd it got?
I don't think so, but it
Okay,
was
cool.
still,
I didn't think so either. That's why I was asking.
yeah, but it was
My
just,
vote, it was a very unusual act. I mean,
Yeah,
I've seen that kind of thing before on Ed Sullivan a million years ago.
Mhm.
But considering that they went from magic and all of a sudden had this, stage and whatever, and the little body dolls, whatever, it's pretty impressive.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you you kind of have to wonder if Fran just has little puppets and a stage ready to go.
yeah. It's an interesting act to do, and I didn't think it warranted the huge round of applause. But I did like that Maxwell was standing up and applauding his daughter. Because like here he was being just totally supportive of her, which was more better than he did before in the show must go on. So, all right, sorry. Scene 10, Mom.
Okay, I think this is the last scene. We're back home at the Sheffield's house and everybody's hanging out in the living room. The kids are wearing pajamas and Gracie and Fran are both wearing sashes from saying first runner-up. That's from the pageant. The kids are noshing on something to eat and Fran puts in a, I don't know, is it a video, a tape?
VHS, yeah.
VHS. And they start seeing pictures of Fran when she was a little child. And then Maxwell comes in and says, oh, I have one. And so they stop Fran's VHS and they start his. He says something about having a surprise, for the family. And this is showing him and his wife, Sarah, and the children, and especially how Sarah was hugging baby Gracie. And all of a sudden, Gracie says, I remember that. And at that point, the scene ends with Fran touching Maxwell's arm. It was very sweet.
It was very sweet. I was teary-eyed by the end of the scene.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it was very, the kids are all watching, and again, you see Maxwell first, and then he like flops down onto the thing and on the chair, and Fran says it was his first flop. You see Maggie and Brighton running around, and then you see Sarah with Gracie, and it was just very sweet.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add, Bernadette?
To that particular scene?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, you can go ahead if you want.
I have a couple less poignant things I wanted to point out. Yeah. So I feel kind of silly. I feel kind of silly bringing them up because you guys are like, oh, it's such a touching scene. And I'm like, it is. I'm not saying it isn't, but there are things that are also funny before that.
Yes.
Brighton asks Gracie, aren't you going to take the sash off? And Maggie steps in and says, oh, leave her alone. How many times in your life do you become first runner-up in a beauty pageant? And Fran comes in, counting this one, 12. And so, Fran points out that she took all the Fine Family Home movies and put them on a VHS. And Brighton's like, so is this you in the olden days? And Niall says, yes, if you keep your eyes peeled, you might see a stegosaurus in the background. And one of the things I liked about this is not just for the Sheffield family footage, but also for the Fine Family films, we're sort of seeing the films, right? We're seeing older videos of things. And so we see a little Fran, and we see a younger Sylvia, and someone comments on how small Sylvia's hair was, and Fran says, well, as her hips got wider, so did her hair. It's kind of a balancing act. And then Maxwell comes in and he's like, oh, you're already watching something. And Fran's like, no, I can turn it off. I've made you all copies.
Yeah.
Which I thought was delightful. But then when we turn to the Sheffield family footage, first off, I think the actors and the actor and actresses they got to play the younger children were great because they look just like Brighton, Grace, and Maggie. And what's funny is in the film we see a little Brighton doing bunny ears on Maggie's head, and Brighton says something like, Maggie, I'm so sorry, I was such a jerk then, or something like that. And at the same time, he's giving her bunny ears right then, and Maggie knows it and says, move it or lose it. And then when they cut to the footage of little Gracie, Fran says, Gracie, Angel, that's you. And then we see Gracie interacting with her mom, and she says, I remember that. And I kind of wonder, would she actually be able to remember that? Like,
depending on the age, how old was she?
She looked really young to me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember stuff when I was 2, so I don't know. What's your earliest memory, like age?
I don't know. I would say that my earliest memory might not even be an actual memory. I think I must have been really little, and I remember sitting outside my bedroom door with a pair of shoes, and I was pulling the soles out of the shoes.
Hmm.
I have no idea if I actually did that or not, though.
Yeah, because I guess like part of this would be like they've established Gracie's now 7,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know how long Sarah's like it's been since Sarah's death.
We don't know that, but we do know that Gracie started seeing her therapist after her mom died, which is around the same time that Imogene, her now dead imaginary friend, appeared.
Oh yeah. Well, so she was then talking, then it would appear
I mean,
if you can identify
wow.
Imogene.
I guess. I,
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. But I do remember stuff when I was like 2, so
okay.
it's
I think
possible.
that's early. I think most people will say probably in their early threes. I know I remember something from when I was 3, and
Mhm.
I've heard other people say around 3. So you must have had something very interesting happen or that really etched in your memory.
Yeah, I generally have good anecdotal memory. Um, but yeah, so and my I know my dad, his earliest is 2 because there was a significant like historical event that happened that he remembers. But anyway, but I think you could also interpret it as maybe she's remembering just not that particular scene, but her mom loving her, a more abstract remembering,
No, that's fair.
remembering the warmth and all of that kind of stuff. So it might not be necessarily, oh, I remember that specific moment, but
Mhm.
just the
Right.
general interaction she may have had with her mother.
And I was pleased they picked a woman who looked like the kids,
Yes.
blonde
Yes.
hair,
Hmm.
you know, that it
Yeah.
really
She
could
really
have
did.
been.
Yeah, I agree with you that she really did appear to, look like the kids. So, um, but our last little scene's just a quick one with bloopers of their performance at the talent show or the pageant. Um, so in general, I felt like it was kind of an abrupt. Like overall, I think that if this was swapped with last week's episode, it would have worked better
I
overall
agree.
because I think it also would have added even more depth to the to Fran potentially leaving if right before we had this whole Mother's Day thing and acknowledging they lost their mother, but Fran's there for them, and then you end with Fran potentially leaving but choosing to stay. So I kind of feel like this one in last week's episode should have been switched because also it doesn't necessarily feel like a season finale to me.
Right.
But actually, think about when this was actually probably whatever first shown. Usually these series, stop in May.
Yes, that's true.
And a lot of the shows like to have a theme connecting to holidays and things that are happening in the real world. So perhaps this last show was the week of Mother's Day. And
Hmm.
that's why they made it the Mother's Day, kind of episode
Hmm. Yeah,
versus
yeah,
thinking
I think
of, the
you're
end
you're
of the season.
probably right. Yeah, in terms of timing. I just think for the overall arc of like the
Mhm.
first season, it probably worked better flipped.
I agree.
I also concur.
And then I would have thought too, like in the end credits, that scene, that if it was the wrap up, because sometimes they've had it where it's the actors like addressing, like around Christmas time, I think they had one where they're like, Merry Christmas. Like I would have almost thought that at least for the last episode, they would have had something acknowledging like thanks for watching, something along those lines. But
They do that in other episodes for different things, but not here.
yeah. Yeah. Did you both have any like overall kind of comments about this episode?
Um,
Or do you want to just keep it to the shticks?
I think a lot of what I want to say will come out in the shticks. So
Okay.
jump into favorite fashion, I guess.
Okay. I just wanted to note, did you guys notice when they first went to the country club that Maxwell and Fran are both wearing like navy and the kids are all wearing black? It just kind of stuck out to me because they looked kind of like a family, you
Oh,
know?
that's interesting. I thought Maggie was wearing the purple velvet dress.
Oh, maybe. It was dark. It was
Yeah,
a
they were all
very
wearing darker colors and they did look like a family, which, even the tour guide seemed to think they were a family.
mm-hmm.
I liked
And it was,
Fran's dress very much. It reminded me of the old uh, clothing that was worn in, what's that movie? Can't think of it. Um, but with Clark Gable and I Don't Give a Damn, whatever
Oh,
that.
oh yeah.
Yeah, one of those, the
Gone
top
with the
of the dress made me feel that way. It's an old fashioned dress. Beautiful.
which dress?
The dress that she wore to the country club.
This one? The black with the sequins on the top?
I couldn't tell you for sure, but the way it looked was really pretty.
And
What
then
did
I
I-
thought it was just adorable when uh, Fran and Gracie were wearing the matching outfits at the
Is that
at
leopard?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it was very much a Fran outfit, like, and it's just cute to see Gracie with the, it's not necessarily that I would wear that, but it was just cute that they were matching.
Right. For our listeners who might not have watched this episode recently, do you want to describe them a little bit more?
I didn't take too deep notes. I mean, I think it's like black with like the trim and stuff, leopard, or am I wrong?
Black shirt, and then there's a leopard print skirt and a leopard print jacket, but the jackets and the skirts are different, which sort of reflects their personalities.
No, I didn't pay too close attention, obviously. Like,
That's
I'll
fine.
let you take over that.
So Fran's jacket is smaller. It's, shorter. Both jackets are long sleeves. Grace's is longer. Fran's skirt is a pencil skirt. Grace's is a little bit fluffier. Kind of like she has a crinoline or a small crinoline underneath.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When you think about
more age appropriate.
not even just more age appropriate, but also like what they tend to wear. Like we don't see Fran wearing big poofy skirts very often. We
That's
usually see
true.
her wearing a pencil skirt. And Gracie is, to this point, we've seen her wearing, these frocks, if you will,
Yes.
dresses with poofier skirts, and usually they have bell sleeves or something. There's some more decoration. So, yeah.
This is a little off topic, but just quickly before I forget, I did want to ask you guys about the timeline of this episode because I feel like it was weird. Because it appeared like Betty Joe and Bobby Joe had done their talent portion, like as part of the actual pageant.
Right.
And then Gracie and Fran ran off, but then they somehow had time to come back and do was it just a really long pageant?
No, I thought that was like a kind of, if you will, a dress rehearsal.
Oh, okay.
And that's why there was so much time. And it had to
Okay.
be
That would make more
lot.
sense. Yeah. Because I was just like, oh, the timeline seemed a little weird, but that would make sense.
Yeah, because Debbie mentioned earlier the timeline of getting to the country club. I mean, that wasn't, as Debbie said, a country club in Manhattan. It had to be in Queens or Westchester or whatever. And I don't know how Fran and then later Fran and crew got there so quickly, maybe a helicopter or something.
Not to, I didn't think it was a dress rehearsal, especially because the judges are there. Because Fran goes and sidles up, goes up to one of them and starts talking to him, which is how she knows they have a lock on miscongeniality, if nothing else. So like, why would the judge be there for the dress rehearsal?
Yeah, I don't know. It was all a bit, again, didn't quite make sense, but
I agree.
yeah, sorry that I know that doesn't have anything to do with fashion, but I was just
That's fine.
note. Was there any other fashion anything you wanted to discuss?
Yes. I thought Gracie made an adorable magician. She was in like a little tux and a top hat,
Mhm.
and she looked just so cute. In that same scene, I really liked Maggie's pink shirt. It had a bit of a bib or like something on the front, and then at the wrist, it sort of belled out a little. So again, she's sort of starting to dress, more interestingly and more like Fran periodically. I really liked Fran's multicolored dress when she and Gracie show up at the country club. It's, a button down front on up to the waist, and then it has splotches of pink and purple and like an orange and lavender. And I think it was really nice. I also, for what it is, I also really liked Gracie's dress, the purple and white with the crinoline. I thought she looked adorable. And I think that's all I had to say about fashion. Do you have anything you want to add, Mom?
I think the people who made the show really had to work hard on coming up with all the different clothing changes. Every scene that people are wearing different clothing.
There was over the summer, I think there was an interview. I want to say it was on BuzzFeed with the person who was responsible for for wardrobe on the Nanny, and it was a full-time job. Like she would shop for like 8 to 10 hours a day, I think she said. And she said that she like didn't care the price tag for the items. It just had to like go with the character. And like she talked about how there was a jacket that Cece wore that they dug out of a trash can. And then obviously Fran had some super expensive, super designery things, and then other things weren't. And yeah, it was a very interesting interview to hear them talk about the fashion of the show. But if you have not seen the series through and do not know how it ends, do not read that article because there are spoilers. So I feel like I need to warn our wonderful audience in case they, don't know what's coming. So anyway, do you want to take us to notable New Yorkers?
Yes, so there's quite a few. I don't know again how like non-person you want to get. There's mentioned Sizzler, but Geraldo, and I believe he came up before. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He did.
So we've noted that before. He was like a reporter journalist kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. He had a tabloid talk show that aired from 1987 to 1998, according to Wikipedia.
I believe you're going to talk about Flamingo Beach in a different segment. So,
I mean, you can talk about that. I just wanted to talk about the food that Fran referenced.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know much about Flamingo Beach. So, does it have much significance?
I did not think so, but
okay. Pez dispensers. Did you have those growing up?
I think so. Not many, but I know what they are. Did you?
Yeah. Now
I think it's more fun to just eat the candy and not bother with the dispenser, but that's just me.
Yeah, the little kids love them. There's a whole litany of like major New York landmarks whenever Niles is talking about, when they're discussing Maxwell's plans for Sunday. And I believe you listed them already.
Yep. The Guggenheim, Radio City Music Hall, Empire State Building, Circle Line Tour, then lunch, then the Zoo, Statue of Liberty, and FAO Schwartz.
Then there's the mention about Pam and Spam, which, although they sound similar, are two different things.
That's fair.
Not to be confused with one another. But I can let you guys take over some as well.
In the scene where they're talking about where Gracie is cutting Fran in half, there's a reference to the film Boxing Helena, which according to IMDb.com is a 1993 film about a surgeon who became obsessed with a woman with whom he had once had an affair. He was unable to accept that she had moved on, so he amputates her limbs and holds her.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, horrible.
So
that movie would give me nightmares, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, not gonna watch it. But it was fairly recent to when this episode aired. It was a 1993 film. So
Well, they kind of made, didn't they kind of make a remark about that, like that nobody watched it or something?
yes, that's what Niall said.
Hmm.
That
So
no
I'm
one.
assuming it was kind of a flop back then.
Well, as you just said, it would give you nightmares. So,
Oh yeah.
um, yeah, sounds kind of dark,
Mm-hmm.
if you ask me. Yeah, on IMDb, it has a 4.7 out of 10 rating. So, for what
Yeah.
that's worth, on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 17. So,
So I know your mom mentioned that the actress who plays Bobby Joe was an actress in some soap opera. Which
Yes,
one was it?
Days of Our Lives. I think she
Mm.
probably might still be on it, but I've
Oh,
stopped
really?
watching it.
Mm-hmm.
She was on for a very long time. I don't remember. Um, Actually, her name might have been Anna on the soap opera. Yeah,
Hmm.
a
Interesting.
conniving woman.
So she kind of fits the role of Bobby Joe well then.
Yes, yes, a bit of a snob too,
Mm-hmm.
but very pretty.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that the Bobby Joe was played by Leanne Hunley, I believe.
Yes.
And she's known for playing Anna DiMera on Days of Our Lives from 1982 to 2011, according to IMDb. So
Wow. That's a nice stretch.
I'd say, yeah. She also apparently was on Dynasty, NCIS, Beverly Hillbillies, Days of Our Lives Beyond Salem. Yeah, she's been on she also was on Gilmore Girls, actually. Apparently, she played Shira Huntsberger. I did not know that.
Uh-huh.
Huh. She was also on things like Dawson's Creek, Seventh Heaven, Murder, She Wrote.
But she didn't have recurring roles on all that, like
No.
she did in on Days of Our Lives.
No, but she also doesn't have a recurring role in The Nanny. So,
No.
which is, anyway, sorry.
And then you mentioned before Petticoat Junction.
Yep. There were two I heard that I couldn't figure out what they were. And I wonder if you caught them, Bernadette.
Mm-hmm.
So in that same scene where Fran and Gracie meet Billy, the Petticoat Junction crew, there's a reference to a Brett girl and No More Tears girl. Did you catch what those were?
No, I did not.
I tried Googling and I didn't.
No More Tears was part of a commercial for Johnson and Johnson baby shampoo.
Mm.
So I don't know if that's because the daughter is young and maybe they wash her hair with that shampoo.
Oh.
I don't know.
Prevent tears.
I thought like maybe it was that, or maybe it was like a doll. I didn't know. I couldn't figure out what those two were.
Mm-hmm.
So you already mentioned Sinead O'Connor. I've already
I do
mentioned.
have a quick question. In the scene after Bobby Joe and Betty Joe play the piano and French horn duet, and Fran is talking about Plan B, and she says, "Call Galoos."
Call Galooly.
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 Uh-huh.
So that one was where I was going. I wasn't sure. And so a quick Google search. I think this is a reference to Tanya Harding's ex-husband who masterminded an attack on Nancy Kerrigan.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
Wow,
that happened in 1994. So
yeah. Huh.
I think that's what that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then I'm out.
Oh, the Clintons are mentioned. Because whenever Maxwell says that Cece's insensitive, I think Niles is the one who says she would take the Clintons to go whitewater rafting.
Wow.
Okay. So is that also a reference to whitewater?
I'm guessing.
Okay.
And then Sinead O'Connor, Patti LaBelle.
Oh yeah.
We mentioned that she's, she guess, appears. and she sings. I don't know if this is the song title, but I've Got a New Attitude is the song that they're singing during
Mhm.
the pageant.
Right. That's a good point. I wonder if that was her actual daughter or not.
I don't know.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, I think those are the major ones I had.
Okay. I'm looking to see if IMDb caught who. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. So, all right. So, which of our sticks would you like to jump to next?
Let's do some Yiddish cop.
Okay, so this is what I want to talk about. So in the first scene, we've all kind of referenced the Flamingo Beach Club or whatever. And Fran mentions that there is a chef there who would make, the chef there would make was it a pot roast?
A roast.
A roast that was to die for. And you would know that last week it came in 9th at Belmont. And so she's implying that the roast beef was actually not beef, but horse meat.
Oh.
And horses are not kosher. They meet neither requirement for to be kosher under kashrut for land animals. Those two requirements are, chewing a cud and having split hooves, and horses meet neither of those requirements, which, yeah. I'll also just mention for our wonderful listeners' edification that horses, in my mind, are basically giant guinea pigs. They have very similar digestive systems. They have very similar gut microbiomes. They eat a lot of the same food. The horse is just way, way bigger and taller. So I once had a vet tell me that, and that they're basically the same. Like, I love this. So anyway,
yeah, that's not anything I would have thought of. Like I would never think to be like, oh yes, guinea pigs and horses are
I think it's probably an oversimplification, because there are all kinds of things that are like guinea pig specific that probably do not apply to horses. Like a guinea pig can go into gut stasis in as few as 6 hours if they don't eat anything. Pretty sure a horse can go over 6 hours and not drop dead. So yeah. And then the other Yiddish term was plots, which I think we talked about 2 weeks ago, which basically means to burst. It can be a positive and negative thing, can be physical or emotional. Yeah. So do you want to talk to us about some 90s nostalgia?
I mean, so just in general, again, all of the outfits just screamed 90s. And, especially at the country club, the country club itself was 90s nice. Like if you go to a country club today, it would not look like that, right?
Right. People
So,
don't dress up like they used to.
So it just everything kind of screamed 90s. But obviously the big one here is like the old, what Fran has of the home videos, they're on reels, right? And
Right.
she's converting that to VHS. And these days it's like you're trying to convert VHSs to some type of digital, whether it's a DVD or just a digital kind of copy of that.
Right.
But yeah, it seems you're always trying to preserve the old. It's just a new medium each time.
Did you catch that when Fran explained what her Mother's Day present to her mom was, that she was converting she said that she was converting the old family films to VHS. And she says, I just wish there was sound so I could hear my voice on tape or something. And Niall said, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
That indicates how old the footage is, that they didn't even have sound recording. So yeah. The VH tape, as you kind of pointed out, the VHS tape itself is super old. There's an old TV. The videos that Fran's converted are even older. They look it, which makes me also wonder, like, did they just go back and find old footage, or did they make it and just make it look old? All the questions I have about the production of this episode.
Remember black and white.
Right.
On those films.
Except for the one of Sylvia with the smaller hair, which was the like weird, like Technicolor Like the color wasn't exactly right. The ones of Fran like running in her dress, those were black and white. But there's
Yes.
the one of Sylvia, and it looks like it's the 60s, or I don't know. It just looks dated.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think we had old cars, but I actually didn't write it down this time. So we're just gonna go out on a limb here and say there were old cars.
In front of the house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like if we ever played bingo for our show, like our podcast, like old cars would be a free space for the listener.
It probably should be. Bernadette, maybe this is something we should talk about. If anyone's interested in us making the nanny bingo, you know how to reach us.
Yes. So, did you guys have anything else for 90s nostalgia?
I did not.
Well, just again, watch out before someone drops a house on you. Again,
Oh,
that's
yes.
from the Wizard of Oz, which is
Mhm.
earlier than that, but that TV show or movie film was shown every year for so many years. And I'm sure it was shown some of those 90s as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good point.
Yeah.
We forgot to mention that.
So shall I take us to the future in our future
Yes.
fun segment? Okay. So let's see. First, I'm going to mention that this is not the only country club that the Sheffields join. Certain members of the Sheffield family, or I should say a certain member of the Sheffield family, joins another country club in season 6. In the scene where Fran is chopped in two, which I still do not understand how they did, and Cece's like, let's go for a little spin. In a later episode, Cece gets spun in a very similar fashion, although she's not cut in half. She's instead in a motorized wheelchair. So we'll come to that. This is not the only time we hear about Fran's beauty pageant history. It comes up again in the episode, The Car Show, where she actually is in another beauty pageant. So in season 6, I will not give any context for this. Brighton, I believe, points out that Fran helps the children remember their mother because she encourages them to light a yahrzeit candle every year. A yahrzeit candle is a candle that is lit every year to mark a year's time after someone has died. The context in that episode is not exactly accurate, but anyway, so Brighton points out that Fran really helps them, talks about their mom and helps them remember her. And then the last and sort of most interesting piece is that we meet Sarah in season 5. So she visits the Sheffield home.
Resurrected?
I again won't give any context to that because I
Wow.
don't want to give anything fun away. So yeah.
Is it the same actress as so far as you can tell as
I
the
think so. And actually, I was Googling that as we were recording, and it does seem like it was the same actress, but I don't.
I hope so. I like continuity. So
I do too. I think she was the same. Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Yes, she is the same. According to IMDb, it is the same woman. So, yeah.
Good.
okay.
So 4 years apart, she plays Sarah Sheffield. So, all right. That's all I have today for future fun. I'm sure there will be more. We have 5 more seasons to get through. So,
but hey, Debbie, we made it through the first season.
We did. We still need to rate this episode though, before we start patting ourselves on the back.
Okay.
And I
It's
think
my turn. Yeah.
I think it's your turn. I think it's your turn, which makes me happy because I don't like it when it's my turn first.
So I think I'm just gonna give it a solid 4. Again, there was several poignant moments, and like I said, the last proper scene left me a little teary-eyed. But again, it didn't really feel to me like a season finale. So just a 4. How about you?
Yeah, so before you said 4, I was going to go with a 4 also. It is, as you put it, there are very poignant moments. I enjoy every opportunity for Maxwell to grow in his, relationship with his kids. It's not my favorite. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as last week. Not sure I enjoyed it as much as Ode to Barbara Joan, or yeah, I think I'm gonna go with a 4 also, because yeah, there are poignant moments. It doesn't feel like the end of the season. But it is nice to see Maxwell and his kids growing closer, and yeah. What do you think?
Well, I was going to say 4, but now I'm thinking 3.5. And that's because of some of the discussion with the time lapses to the country club and some of the other faults we kind of found. But I also wanted to add, because I don't know if you guys have mentioned it. I'm sure you must have at some point. But Mr. Sheffield, the actor who plays him, also was on Days of Our Lives. And heck, he was Shane, whatever his last name was. And heck, he was one of my favorite characters on Days of Our Lives. So it's interesting that he and the other actress who was on this time was also a Days of Our Lives actor.
Oh, I didn't know that. So thank you. I don't believe I don't believe we've ever mentioned the Mr. Sheffield's actor, any other roles he's done.
I don't think we have either. But I know we've mentioned that his British accent is accurate. Is real, unlike
Authentic.
Niles.
Authentic.
It's authentic. Thank you. That is the word I'm struggling to find. But Niles is not. So that's what we've talked about. We've talked about how there was controversy when the show aired. Just since we've talked about what Charles Shaughnessy was in previously, I just feel like noting that after the Nanny wrapped up, Fran Drescher had a number of other series, and I think Charles Shaughnessy appears on every single one of them, and if not every one of them, almost every one of them as a guest star. So yeah, it's nice. Yeah, we'll have more trivia about Mr. Charles Shaughnessy and Miss Fran Drescher as we continue our revisiting of the Nanny. So
I want to thank you both for letting me be a guest on your show. It's been a lot of fun. I thank you.
Thank you so
Keep up
much
the
for
good
joining
work.
us.
Thanks, Mom. So as Bernadette, before we officially wrap up, as Bernadette pointed out, this was the end of season 1. I actually have this in our outro. So unless you have something else you want to add, Bernadette, I'm gonna.
Nope.
Okay, cool. That's all we have for you today. We hope you had a fine time with us as we revisited the Nanny. Join us next week when we'll wrap up season 1 before moving into season 2 with episode 23, Fran Light.
If you'd like to reach us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Nanny Revisited. You can also send us email at afinetimenannyrevisited@gmail.com. Have a great week.